Great defeaters, new and old, welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID, Tony, Pugilist Boy. We are the children of the game. Tony, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. Yeah. One last week of school before the half term, so we're on the final legs of this first year of or term of 2023. I had a great weekend boxing wise. I thought it was a bumper weekend of some great fight action, so I was very pleased and looking forward to another one coming up. How are you, bro?
I'm all right, I'm all right. Apologies, like Mola, I can see in the chat you said reason for the lateness is me. I was here, but I've got a brand new phone. I've been trying to sort it out, and people keep calling me left, right, and center, dropping out my connection. So that's why I run in late. But as always, the show is here. We on time. Um, yeah, weekend was a good one. I mean, I enjoyed all the stuff for Friday. I was pleasantly surprised of the main card, the main fights that was on the card. So Richard Torres, and then obviously Barbosa and Pedraza, and Navarrete Wilson was a nice little way to kick off the weekend. And
Yep.
then the zone card, I mean, apart from one fight, I was pleasantly entertained throughout the entire thing. So in terms of their very first card of the year, started off strong. So let's see if it continues that way.
Indeed, indeed. So let's talk. Let's see who's in the chat. You already mentioned Muller Muller. Want to give the roll call?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the roll call. Okay, so we got the subscriptions and the members come true. So Marcus Nevers with the new membership. Welcome to you, Matthew Dixon, Muller, Leon Martin. Oh, Muller's got a membership as well. Big up to you, Uncle Jonah, North Bank Bren, Fight Fan TV Live, Jam Down 187, Ken Griffin. Who's that? Chris Collymore, Maestro. Big up to you. Jay Lanks, big up to you. Black Super Sidebar, bless up. And I think that is everybody. So, where do you want to take it to start this illustrious show? Because it's
Well,
a big.
you know me, bro. I always like to go in the chronological order. So, Friday night action, as you said, we saw some nice action on the Friday night. So, let's take it there.
All right, which one we going with first? So, we're going to go from the bottom to the top?
We'll go from the bottom to the top. I haven't
All right.
got much of by way of action. I've only got the Richard Torres fight, but we can talk about some of the other fights that took place. Where do you want to
I will
start with?
tell you from now, I only saw what was on the main card. So, I didn't see
Okay.
any Nico Ali Walsh or anything like that. So,
Okay.
if you want to speak about that stuff, let's do it now. Get any of that out of the way.
Okay, so as I'm like yourself, I didn't really get into any of the pre main card stuff. So let's get into the Arnold Barbosa Pedraza fight.
All right, start off. Let's go.
Very nice little matchup between Arnold Barbosa and Jose Pedraza. Obviously, Jose Pedraza, 29-4-1. Most people will have seen him over the years. Now getting a little bit long in the tooth, but came up against, the 27-0, 10 KO Arnold Barbosa, fighting out of Los Angeles. And this was a nice little fight. I thought this was an entertaining 10-round battle between the two. Very nip and tuck. Pedraza, because he's just a road warrior now, he's kind of like, one of those gatekeepers to me. He's seen his best years. He's been to the mountaintop. He's fought good guys on his career, but now he's up against an upstart in Barbosa. And Barbosa's got lovely, lovely boxing skills. He comes out, he looks nice. Good jab, good fundamentals, great footwork, reads distance very well, and effectively wins this one on a unanimous decision. I don't do the blow by blow like you because I'm just going to wrap it up very quickly.
Okay.
All I can say is it was a nice start to the night for me. One of my first time to see Barbosa. I have seen him once before, but I didn't really take notice of him until this fight, but certainly one that I will keep my eye on.
Okay, so as you said, since I do the bit more of the play-by-play, I'll give a bit more of techniques and styles and skills and everything that happen to be used. Right, so now Jose Pedraza primarily is very much the school of like a boxer puncher. So he's equal amounts offense and defense normally. He will sort of, circle the ring, circle the periphery, and try and sort of land his shots almost in bursts, in and out, to sort of avoid work on the way, on the trajectory outside. Now, it seems as in this particular fight now, he decided to switch up and he became almost more of a pressure fighter or a pressure in boxer puncher. He stayed on the front foot for the most part. I feel like he felt Barbosa's power and didn't actually respect it too much. Because Barbosa hit him a couple of times with a few clean shots, but he pretty much ate them. He had pretty good head movement throughout every time, even when he was walking in straight lines towards Barbosa, but he always had head movement to offset and keep Barbosa honest and sort of keep him trapped. And both of them they both exchanged throughout the fight. Throughout each round, they had exchanges. But I felt like for the most part, even though Barbosa was landing the cleaner work, Pedraza was almost pushing him around the ring. And it was one of those things where, even though, I say Barbosa did just about nick the fight, it was very close. And, it's almost like Barbosa is getting better in his gatekeeper role than he was when he was younger, which is mad because he's a two-weight world champion. But he just, being at 140 is not where he should naturally be yet. He's taking all these guys either the distance, or like he just put in pause on them, and because he's really the opponent, it's almost he's not supposed to get the victory. So at best he's kind of getting draws, which kind of then tells you that he's actually should be winning the fight, because that's, if the away fighter gets a draw, that normally means they won. That's the rule of thumb in the game of boxing. But yeah, the styles, like Arnold Barbosa, if he's gonna move to the upper echelon, he's gonna either have to work on his defense to make sure that he doesn't get hit at all with his lack of punch power, or he's gonna have to try and find ways to either develop that, or he's gonna have to find ways to sit and be comfortable in the pocket. Because when you're getting pushed around by a former 130-pounder, it doesn't really look good on you. So, but that being said, I thought that was an excellent fight, and I thought that was a great way to, a great appetizer for the main event. Personally, I preferred it more than the main event, but the main event was still a great fight. But just from like an analytical point of view, I preferred that one. So yeah, without a huge summary breakdown, but yes, that was styles used and sort of just how the ring generalship sort of transpired within the fight. Where do you want to go next?
So I want to drop into the very quick clip I've got of the very entertaining and the
My guy,
the porn
Richard,
star lookalike Richard Torres Jr. Was fighting against James Bryant. Oh, have I got the wrong one?
Yeah, it looks like you have.
Oh, I've uploaded the wrong one. So I'm gonna come back to that, but we'll go on to Navarrete Wilson. So if you wanna give us your breakdown of that while I upload the very short clip that I have of the Richard Torres. So
all right, well,
take it away.
Mute your mic. So right, this fight now was a very entertaining fight. Now as you can see there, 129.2 to 126, there was supposedly some shenanigans with the scales, as Wilson said that he did a check weight just before the fight, before the official weigh-in, and he was weighing 129, and then he goes to do the fight, and then he's at 126. So he thinks the scales were calibrated to allow Navarrete to make the weight, because he didn't actually make it. Now, if you look at his body, there's an argument that could actually be the case. He didn't really look as polished as he usually does. Now, The way that Liam Wilson was actually dominating this fight in the early rounds. Navarrete is normally a very statuesque and long-limbed opponent for the weight divisions that he's in, so he has stylistic advantages over his opponents. So he can throw shots from unorthodox positions. He can like sort of almost lunge in and get away with lunging in like behind maybe a reckless jab or a straight right, because he's always able to sort of get out of range before the opponent has a chance to strike. But now he's obviously come up to 130. He's lost a lot of those height and size advantages that he had previously, and so he was falling in short a lot of the time towards Liam Wilson. And what Wilson was doing, rather than engage with him, he was literally boxing him pretty much on the back foot, catching him with counters. And as you can see, that's how he ended up getting him in trouble. And he's got power to crack. That was what we see in that clip that you had just seen there. However, his problem then became, as you see there, rather than carry on boxing, when he had Navarrete hurt and then didn't jump on him and tried to play shots. When Navarrete got back into the fight, then rather than boxing him from the outside like he was doing before, he decided to stand in the pocket and try and trade with him. And staying up close and actually fighting Navarrete, that's the fight he wants. That's you took away all the advantages you had and gave Navarrete his game. And that is essentially how Liam Wilson ended up losing the fight. It was a good performance, but again, when he hasn't had the necessary step up in competition, he hasn't fought the necessary guys at the top level to be able to know what to kind of do in certain situations. Very similar to some other fighters that we've seen recently, and for that, basically, it was just a case of Navarrete's experience is kind of what ended up winning him the fight, including some dirty dark arts tactics with splitting out the gum shield up, once you're actually on your feet, which realistically could have been a disqualification, but I guess the ref may have been under strict instructions that he's the guy that wins. With regards to Maestro, your comment, Wilson should be fighting at 126. He says he didn't weigh in at 126. He said he was 129 on his scales, and then when he got there, all of a sudden he dropped down to 126. He said they weighed in literally 30 minutes apart. You can't drop 4 pounds in 30 minutes. So yeah, he definitely they are thinking their shenanigans, and they have from what I've heard, they're going to appeal that. So yeah, that's sort of my take on how the fight went. What about yours, Tony?
Yeah, so as you said, very entertaining fight. This fight to me exposed Emmanuel Navarrete for me, because his style is quite simply not clear enough. It's not a good style. Basically, he's not a boxer. He's a slugger. He doesn't use his jab effectively. He doesn't judge distance, because he throws a lot of wild shots which miss a hell of a lot. And as you said, Liam Wilson through the early rounds was able to pick Navarrete apart using good boxing fundamentals, using a good crisp jab, judging distance, creating, traps with his work, and effectively outboxing Navarrete through the early rounds, just on work ethic alone, and using good boxing skills. There is talk, and there's a reason that I've slowed down the first knockdown, because there is a lot of people talking about that last right hook that catches Navarrete there, boom, that shot, which we'll see in slow motion, because technically Navarrete has his hand on the floor. But as far as I'm concerned, the people who are going overboard and saying, oh, he should have been disqualified, that's totally wrong, because he's still technically kind of upright. I've seen guys crouch down way lower than that. As you can see, yes, technically he has his hands on the floor, but he has a style where he bends at the waist, leaning forward. Yeah, you can see he's already there, but all it is his back foot gets kicked out and he ends up with his hands on the floor, but he's actually still kind of in an upright position. And then Wilson catches him beautifully with that right hook. There, boom. So I'm not going to go overboard on it, but effectively to me, that was not a DQ shot. Things fell apart when Wilson stopped boxing. He literally appeared to me to be running out of gas, and he stopped doing the things that had got him to the point where he was. Navarrete was then able to close the distance, and effectively, once he's able to close distance, he's then able to offload with his fusillade of big wide hooks and use his power. And that's what we see next coming up, as you can see. You know, those big wide shots, nothing straight, everything round the side, the uppercut and the hook. And that's what paid dividends for Navarrete in the end. But to me, as I said, you know, a good boxer will beat the hell out of Navarrete because he showed that he cannot keep up with a good fundamental boxer like Liam Wilson was in the early rounds of this fight.
Fair it is. Right, have you got Torres in there?
I have a very quick showing of the very entertaining Richard Torres with a beautiful left uppercut. Boom. Now I will tell you for nothing.
So I'm gonna take that off just in case we got copyright. That's Top Rank footage. Just in case. They normally are right, but I don't want to get the channel flagged.
So the James Bryant is a former NFL player. And the minute he walked out the corner, I knew it. Because my man had the worst footwork going. I mean, it was just lamb to the slaughter, basically, for Richard Torres. You know, Torres is an up-and-coming superstar of the heavyweight division. He's been, you know, carefully managed by Top Rank. He's obviously got some kind of, you know, attraction to Top Rank because I'm sure they have other heavyweights. And I know they have other heavyweights. But to me, they seem to be, he's the crowd favorite. You know, he's very entertaining. And then feeding him cannon fodder like James Bryant, just, to me, it was awful. It was awful. But having said that, Torres did what Torres does, and he took care of business and took out James Bryant with great aplomb.
You know, he hasn't even had a full year as a professional yet.
He can't be fed that kind of meat though. James Bryant, I'm telling you now, I fancy my chances against James Bryant. The man is not a boxer. His technique is woeful. He couldn't throw a jab. It's woeful.
Well, in your first year, that's what you get. You just get people that are either going to try and sort of test you with no skills, or people that are durable going to give you some rounds.
I get it.
I've got no issues with that. In terms of like one thing that, all right, so there's one thing in that fight which I was slightly concerned about, and that is that Richard, he's very good at level changing, but when he level changes, he sort of he goes up. It's always up and down. There's never any pendulum to it. So at any point, if you are not switched on correctly, you could end up catching an uppercut or even an overhand right, which could end up hitting you maybe at the back of the head or the side or the temple shot, just because there's no movement to you. It's all up and down, it's all vertical. So that's something that I feel like he probably needs to just keep an eye on moving forward. But that being said, his natural aggressive style, that pressure style of his, is gonna work for pretty much anyone, against anyone, sorry, except like the elite level boxer punchers, or even the elite level pure boxers who can frame him on the way in and detonate a straight right when he's about to sort of explode into the pocket. But yeah, with regards to his power, he's got very noticeable, very nasty power, as we saw. I mean, it's very rare that you see someone literally get lifted off the ground from an uppercut like it's Street Fighter. But in this case, both feet did come off the ground before getting pushed back with the straight right to finish off the combo. And yeah, Bryant just wasn't, he didn't want no more. The corner waved it off, and Torres carries on with his career. Now, him and Jared Anderson will probably be on a crash course maybe towards the back end of this year or the start of 2024. They had a slight amateur rivalry. Torres beat him in the amateurs, so they've got that history to draw from if need be. And they are sort of going to be the next two big heavyweights from the top rank stable. So it makes sense to, even if you keep them on a separate path for the time being, but eventually those two are gonna join up and put on a money fight together. So it was enjoyable for me. I'm more than happy with it, and I'm just looking forward to basically what happens next in his career.
So as Danny has rightly pointed out, Torres does have a formidable amateur record, having had 64 fights, winning 54 of them, and winning silver medal at the Olympics.
Yeah, he lost to Jalilov in the Olympics.
Yeah. So let's move on. So we go from that card. Nico Ali Walsh, unanimous decision. For those of you who are interested in the career of Nico Ali Walsh, didn't get a knockout this time. Got himself a unanimous decision. Anything else on that card that you want to mention?
It was only those 3 fights I saw.
Okay, cool. So we'll move on to Saturday night, which was stacked. It was stacked. So where do you want to start?
All right. So the first place I think is only right to start is with the sweet hands of Miss Shadeja Green versus Ellen Cedarus. Probably one of my more favorite fights on the card. It was a fight that I said in my predictions video would be my guilty pleasure of the night. She's an incredibly tough, strong woman, very big at the weight, obviously, so you can see that she's just a physically imposing person. Now, first couple rounds of this fight, to me, Shadeja was looking a little, I don't know if nervous or worried or scared is the right word, but she looked concerned. Like, she didn't look comfortable while she was moving around, basically working the peripherals, and like she was snapping the jab. She had a great jab that she was popping in Cedarus's face, but Cedarus was also coming back with her straight power jab, and she's very heavy-handed in herself, and again very imposing. And there was times where she would trap Shadeja in the corner. She would go to unload. Shadeja had pretty good defense, but she was still getting tagged with a few bits and pieces here and there. Was able to sort of get out of the pocket, and but she carried on working with the jab. She tried to land the backhand a couple times in the first 2 rounds, which they didn't quite come off, but the jab was just snapping Cedarus's head back pretty much all the way. She couldn't really miss with the jab. The jab was the shot. It was jab, pivot off, move, assess, jab, double jab, move, and that was sort of the pattern. And occasionally she would churn that jab into a short hook. There was other times where she would throw the backhand, and she would catch Cedarus when she's sort of almost stepping in and knock her off balance a bit. But there was a few times you could actually see her legs do a little dip. So you saw, okay, something got through. Something is taken here. Then, as I said, in the she throws the overhand right, very similar to what Cruz does, and I knew that she would get that overhand right to land on Aline Cedarus. But what she does with her overhand right, it's a lot sharper, and it's a lot neater, and it's a lot closer to the target than the looping ones that Franchon Cruz throws. And as you could see, Cedarus tried to catch her with her own shot. I think it was a jab 1-2 she was trying to land, and Shadeja Green slipped off, threw that overhand right, bang, straight on the button, and Cedarus goes down heavily and is basically out on her feet for the rest of that round, which I think there was only about 10 to 15 seconds left of at the time. She managed to survive that round, managed to kind of go. She recovered in round 4, had a very good round 4. Kind of gave her that one. Round 5, she got caught again with a few stinging shots, some shots that you could tell was buckling the legs a bit. But again, she's tough, kept applying the pressure, and Shadeja again was looking a little bit unnervy. I think she settled down a little bit now because she knew she had the power to hurt her, but she still didn't look totally comfortable being on the back foot as she was. But yeah, when it then came down to round 6, caught her with a sweet right hook, right to the sort of the back, just behind the ear. The leg started to do a little dance. She then she wobbled into the ropes on the other side. Shadeja ran over to her, and the thing that I liked about Shadeja is she didn't just go head hunting. She didn't even just go like just throwing shots in flurries. Like she was literally picking where the punches was gonna land, and it was just one to the head. All right, you try to tuck to the head, one to the body. The second one comes through the head. Now a hook's hitting you. Now I'm throwing the uppercut at you. Everything was measured work to the point then when the ref just had to call it off. And yeah, Shadeja gets her 11th stoppage in 11th stoppage in 12 victories. So she's definitely got power. The power is real. It's now been proven at world level. Bearing in mind, Aline Cedarus is a former champion, and yeah, so she is now here to stay, and all roads for her will next lead to Franchon Cruz for that undisputed at 168. Yeah, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was the fight I was most looking forward to outside of the co-mains, but and I was happily pleased. What about yourself, Tony?
Yeah, I was also happily pleased. This was at super middleweight. These girls are, your bigger girls. They are, they're big girls and they can bang. Very often we're looking at lighter weights and we see a lot of, punches that don't have the same effect. But obviously, we've seen with the likes of, Franchon Cruz, Cedarus in the past, they can bang. They can proper bang. Shadeja is someone I didn't know too much about until you mentioned it. But boy, the finish reminded me of Tommy Hearns against Duran because she came in, leans to the side, and she throws 2 jabs, one head, one body, and comes in with an overhand right that whoop. I was like, rotted. Tommy Hearns. So I was very impressed by her. She showed great poise. Cedarus definitely showed that she's got very good experience. She caused, Shadeja some issues around middle rounds. She was in the fight in pretty much most rounds. She showed her class. She showed her durability. But boy, in the end, Shadeja came through with some hefty punches. And I like the way she set them up. She showed her boxing capabilities in that she's not rushing in. She's using distance wisely. And again, as I said, the double jab before that right hand sets the punch up beautifully. Something she was doing all night long, using the long levers that she has, extending with the jab. And, look, she did really well. I'm very impressed. I got to say, I'm pretty excited at the prospect of Shadeja versus Franchon. That looks to me like one hell of a fight. Am I right? That's the kind of fight that would headline a card. Do the two of them have the capabilities?
It could, depending on how small the card is or where the card is.
Okay.
It wouldn't be able to headline a big card, but it
Like
could
the Hulu
be
again, perhaps, maybe?
huh?
The Hulu? I mean,
I mean, no,
Franchon.
it could get on there,
They're
but what
both
I mean is,
they're both from like New York, New Jersey, isn't it?
Shadeja's from New Jersey, and
Yeah.
Franchon is from. She's not from the East Coast. I can't remember exactly where she's from, but
Okay. But yeah, looks
yeah,
like
no, they could get in the Hulu, but what I mean is they themselves couldn't be the main event of a card at present.
Yeah.
They could either be the or they could be like maybe the third from top at this stage. But after that fight, then one of them would have a credible shout to possibly be able to headline a card, in my opinion, based on their power, their pulling power. Because Shadeja's still very unknown. So
yeah.
Franchon is not super known either, outside of being very good friends with Clarissa Shields.
Clarissa Shields, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on. Who do you want to talk about next? Ramla Ali.
We'll talk about Ramla Ali a little bit against Avril Mafi. So now this is a fight that I was a bit conflicted on. So obviously I follow Ramla. I watch her career. I like what she does, and I like how active she is, especially recently. As she's joined Manny Robles, she started to sit down on shots a bit more. She's got a bit more power in them. She got KOs in her last two fights prior to this one. Avril Mafi, very tough woman, but she's a natural super bantamweight. A bantamweight. She's a 118 pounder, whereas Ramla Ali is a super bantamweight at 122. So Avril went up in weight to go to challenge her, although they pretty much size wise look very much the same size. Like Avril could quite easily slot into that 122 division, which also then makes me think Ramla could also be in the 118. But maybe it's just because you don't want her around sort of Ebony and Shannon Courtney and the rest of them. Maybe that's why it's for her to compete at 122. But pretty much Ramla had the majority of this fight well in hand, behind the backhands. Like Avril sort of was rushing in trying to ambush her, whereas Ramla was working well off the 1-2 counters and the 1-2s. But then when it came through to rounds 3, it was rounds 2, rounds 3 onwards. One of the issues I had was Ramla Ali. Now, I don't mind dirty boxing and dirty tactics to a degree. Like, I think it's, if you get away with it, get away with it. But the referee in this fight left a lot to be desired, because she was pretty much, you've got Ramla she was leaning all over Avril Mafi's back. She was pushing her forearm and her elbow into the side of her head, into the side of her neck at times, pushing down the back of her neck. There was times where Avril would be down trying to get away, and she'd have herself sprayed out to the ref saying, I'm not holding. And Ramla would literally hold the head down and try and throw bowler uppercuts to her. And the ref at this whole time, there's times where he's actually admonishing Avril for dipping down, even though Avril hasn't actually dipped her head down far enough for Ramla to be headlocking her, but Ramla's just literally got her into that position. And again, I liked it at the start of the fight, but after a while I was just looking like, ref, what are you doing? Where is the warning? Where is the point? You must have to take a point off. Like, you watch that fight, literally in every round it was foul after foul after foul. It reminded me of Klitschko versus Povetkin. That's literally how bad it looked. And I'm surprised that Avril's team didn't moan or complain or tell the ref anything. But and that same ref had a shocker later on in the event. But yeah, it was just a very sort of messy fight at certain points, and I think that Ramla was just using that as a way to obviously deter Avril from, you know, sort of coming forward and trying to ambush. But yeah, it made it for more of an uncomfortable viewing than it had to be, because she was doing well in the first couple rounds without all those tactics. But it also then shows that when she wants to, she can be a dirty little fighter. And sometimes, you know, it's not all about the, you know, the beauty and everything. If you want to get down and dirty, she's prepared to do so. So I was conflicted on that one, but yeah, overall, I thought the fight was a nice little enjoyable fight. Um, it went the distance as I predicted it would. Um, as pretty much all of my predictions, bar one, were spot on, and the one that wasn't spot on again is the same to do with that exact same referee. But we'll talk about that later on. What did you think of that fight when you saw it?
So I have to kind of go with Jam Down 187. That was the last fight of hers that I'm watching. I'm not familiar with Mafi, but Ramla at no point troubled Mafi with her punch, and I don't feel she really outclassed the OnlyFans model either. Now, there's no doubt that Ramla won the fight, but there was nothing there that makes me think, well, she's an attractive boxer. She, you know, she doesn't use the ring well. She's not controlling the tempo. Literally, she just picks here and there. And the 99-91 in all three judges to me seem a little bit one-sided. And as you mentioned, she's got some elements in her game that just aren't attractive. She seems to lack a jab. She's like, I just want to step in your face and throw the hooks.
No, I disagree with that. If you watched any of her other fights, she works off the jab pretty much all the time. It's because Avril was in her face, so she's like, because she's now got the new trainer, obviously working with Manny Robles. She's almost fallen in love with the fact that she's got power.
But then how do you abandon the jab? I mean, I think I mentioned this at the time in our chat group. She literally abandoned the jab because she's like, okay, I've got power now, so let me just go in and knock this girl out. Well, hang on a second. Mafi's going to come in and she's going to use her jab and she's going to set things up and she's going to keep working 1-2 straight down the middle.
But Mafi wasn't using the jab either, and this is the only fight.
I'm watching the fight right now. Yeah. And Mafi is using a jab effectively. Yeah.
No, I disagree.
Watch it again. I swear down.
But if you look at Ramla's last two fights and all the fights before that, there was jabs in there. So yeah, remember. Yeah. But it's also the style. If the girl's coming in that certain style, if you think that the hook is going to be the most effective tool, which, because if you let's not forget, if you look at Mafi's face at the end of it, clearly them hooks was landing. They was working.
But hang on a second. Did you not see the big mark under Ramla Ali's eye?
Yeah, but that's one. If you look at Mafi's face compared to Ramla's face, one of them is visibly more banged up than the other. And that's because Mafi is, like I said, she's ambushing. She's coming. She's rushing in, and because she's rushing in, Sky wants this. I mean, Ramla wants distance to be able to pop that jab. She wasn't given the distance, so she went up close and got dirty. You watch all the rest of her fights, there is a jab there. But whether you want to watch her or not again, that's totally your choice. I'm not arguing.
I'm not sold on her at all. I'm not sold on her at all. And probably saying the same way you feel about the next fighter that we'll review is kind of the same I feel about.
You can talk about that. I'm gonna turn my mic off. You go ahead.
So basically, Base and I have had our conversation in relation to Ramla Ali. Obviously, I'm not a great fan of her. Skyliner says Ramla seems stuck between styles. Jam Down, you guys need to use an asterisk whenever you say Ramla now has power. I'm yet to see it. At no point did Mafi get rocked. Skyliner says Ramla comes across rudimental. Yeah, she does jab, Dan, but she's not using it effectively. But moving on from that fight, Sky Nicholson, yeah, indeed, Dan. Sky Nicholson. absolutely awful fight. Absolutely awful. For all the hype around Sky Nicholson, it was just literally a big letdown for me. I'm not going to go into too much, but she's lost. She wins a decision where I'm just like, what have you shown us? What have you learned? Considering that she's worked out the last week of her camp with Alicia Baumgardner in Alicia's home state, and you're thinking, oh, maybe she, did they spar? Did they get any work together? And Baumgardner's giving Sky loads of press and praise, and Sky Nicholson is giving it like, yeah, it was enjoyable working with Alicia. And I watch a lot of Alicia's training footage. She's a very diligent, hardworking fighter. But I just was like, what the hell was going on? Skyliner says it. Sky should do trials for the Olympic swimming, but as far as boxing is concerned, I'm no longer interested. And Bates is so far off her that he's turned his mic off and his camera. Yeah, the less said the better, because effectively, there's nothing really great about Sky Nicholson. She didn't show anything in the fight that makes me think she's going to be able to compete at the elite level in the sport. And so that's my job done. Dan says, I highly doubt Tony Harrison worked with her. Maybe not, but, being around, I don't have to work with a trainer to pick up tips if I go in a gym. That's the short and tall. And you, Danny, would know that. I can go in a gym, I can sit on the side and watch. What some of the best learning I ever learned was sitting in the Kronk gym watching Thomas Hearn being trained by Emmanuel Stewart. Undeniably great learning. And I never had to go in the ring. I did go in the ring, but I didn't have to. So let's move on. The next fight we will talk from on that card. What do you want to talk about, Base?
Right, so we can kind of get through the next couple quickly. Talk about Richardson Hitchens against John Bowser.
Yes.
Pretty much, without going into it too much, it was an open and shut case. Hitchens is an incredible talent. He doesn't want to be referred to as a prospect. He wants to be known as a contender. And putting on the level of performance he did, it's very easy to see why. He's got a great jab. He's got a great 1-2, and his footwork is, I would say, almost exceptional. It's very, very good. And the one thing that he does, which I really like, is there's no excessive or incessant movement. Everything is very micro. Every movement is very subtle, very small. If he needs to spring out of range, either to avoid a shot or to land one, he will do so. But more time than not, he'll use his lateral movement. He'll use his upper body movement to angle away from shots. He pretty much always keeps a high guard. Fist is always up, ready to catch and counter if need be. But again, he pretty much, it was a shutout victory. Like, he won all 10 rounds against Bowser. There's not even a round that you can give Bowser like a share of. He had moments in a couple, but every time he had a moment, it was literally just out of desperation, because Hitchens was just lighting him up all night. Now, Hitchens got it. He hit him with a 1-2 down the pipe from the orthodox position, because Bowser was fighting a southpaw. Hit him with that southpaw killer straight down the pipe in the 4th round, and Bowser was dropped heavily. Hitchens did sort of step on it a little bit, but he didn't give it enough. I don't feel like that round he gave it enough. There was definitely moments he could have got him out, but I said, all right, cool. He's just going to keep working. He's going to keep working and keep breaking him down. Like, the eye, he kept targeting the eye. The eye was just getting worse and worse throughout the fight. Got to the 7th. By the time it was in the 8th round and there was 3 rounds to go, I literally was thinking, all right, yeah, either the corner's going to stop this, or the doctor's going to stop this, or the ref needs to stop this, because at this point, Bowser was just taking a beating. There was no way he was going to win on the cards, and he didn't even have a puncher's chance because there was nothing he was throwing that Hitchens was either not seeing, that he couldn't take, or that he wasn't just slipping and countering. And then by the time it got to the 8th round, the 9th round, it was just an uncomfortable beating. Bowser did well to kind of see out the 10th and even be a bit of the aggressor at the end of it. But by that time, Hitchens just said, you know what? I've already won this. I'm going to go for a quick jog because I heard the clapper. You know, now to me, I wasn't particularly happy about that because he mashed up my accumulator. He was the only person that didn't perform to task. But it should have been stopped. So I don't blame him too much. But the one thing he needs, in my opinion, is killer instinct. He's got the power, he's got the technique, he's even got a bit of the intentions, but I don't feel like he lacks conviction to go through, because at certain times it just looked as if it was almost like, all right, I know I got him hurt, but I don't want to take the chance just in case he catches me. And yes, being safety first from it, because he's a pure boxer by trade, that does make sense. But when your guy is basically ready to go, he's ready to go. And at that point, you could have saved yourself 2 or 3 rounds, which then means you could have then got yourself another payday, maybe a month or two quicker than you're gonna get out next time, because you did less rounds in the ring. So I feel like, yeah, he needs a bit more impetus in terms of getting people out of there. And that in itself is not to do with the accumulator that he busted. That's just my natural thoughts. But yeah, other than that, it was a brilliant performance. Again, shout out performance. I knew about Hitchens from a few years ago. He was crazily inactive, so he kind of left my mind. But I'm happy he has joined Matchroom, and look, he's been with them 3 months. He's already been out twice already, so that's the kind of activity we need. And someone like him, I can see being a very big star moving forward, because he can talk. He's got the trash talk when he needs it. He's got the skills to back it up. Now he just needs to get those knockouts and cement himself in the upper echelons of the 140 division. What about you? What did you think of that?
Cool, yeah. I mean, much like yourself, I agree. Absolutely superlative boxing skills. The one thing that stood out for me was speed of hands. The guy's hands are fast. I mean, Tommy Hearns fast. He gets that jab out like whip, whip. It's like you see it coming back. It's like whip, whip. But yeah, very good skills. Considering that he's had 16 bouts already, with 7 KOs, it's surprising that I haven't seen too much of him previously.
Because he's been inactive for the last 4 years. He's had 3 fights. But prior to the Matchroom deal, he had 3 fights in the last 4 years because of him being on TMT.
Yeah. I mean, the guy's got skills. And from Saturday night, I'd put him up there with the likes of Shushu Carrington. Technically beautiful to watch. Just absolutely beautiful to watch. Guys, if you haven't seen the fight, go watch it. Very nice style, very, very nice boxer. Hits, with bad intentions when necessary. As you said, Base, if he steps on the gas a little bit after he gets the knockdown, I think he finishes the fight. But hey, I'm not going to knock him too much on that one because it was a superlative performance. He dominated from top to bottom. And as I said, he's now on my radar. I hope to see him by the end of this year, making some noise.
Okay, so now it's the 2 co-main events. I guess we got to do it in order. So Alicia the Baumgardner versus LM Mekhalet for the undisputed super featherweight championship, which is 130 pounds. Now, with this fight, the first thing which was highlighted is that Mekhalet actually came into this fight coming off of a loss, but that was primarily, I believe, because Delphine Pursoon had a no contest in her previous fight before that. And yeah, so the first few rounds were sort of very there was Alicia doing what she does best, like controlling distance, controlling the pace of the fight, sticking behind the jab, slipping a lot of Mekhaled's backhands, also slipping her jab a lot of the time. Caught a couple of them, but ultimately, like, she was comfortable and controlled in those first few rounds. As you can see there, it was a counter right, a counter straight right that ends up catching Mekhaled, which then is the reason that she obviously drops down there, and Alicia's gone to finish. It was a very good sort of finishing salvo, but after this particular point, rather than picking her punches when Mekhaled was really hurt, she just tried to flurry so the ref would jump in. Um, Dangerous tactic, as we saw, because then in the fourth round and even the fifth, she kind of had to use those rounds to get her legs back a bit and to recover. Because as you can see there, this is the seventh round, by the way, that you're seeing the action from that one. But um, this was probably the only time where the shots, she was actually setting them up correctly rather than just sort of flurrying, hoping that she's gonna land everything. But in the third, she got her down the two times, then tried to flurry again, finish her, gassed out, had to take a couple rounds off, which is, a lot of power punchers. That is basically their kryptonite. If they don't get you out of there, then they take a long time to recover. Um, but yeah, so but ultimately she controlled the rounds. She lost a couple of them due to inactivity and sort of tiring. But towards the back end of the fight, when it sort of came down to it, even though she was still taking some shots, she just stood in the pocket and traded to say to herself, you know what, you might think you're getting on top here. I'm gonna take some of your shots, but I guarantee you won't take mine. And that was evident when she got the knockdown that wasn't called in the 10th round off of a very nasty uppercut, which clipped Mekhaled. But the ref obviously did see the feet slightly get tangled where she was on her way down, so he ruled it a slip. But yeah, it was the first time I watched it, I won't lie, I actually thought, even though I thought Alicia won it, I thought she only won it because of the two knockdowns in round three, because I had it 95-93 to her. Having watching it back the second time, I actually scored it 96-92. So I had it 6 rounds to 4 overall. But yeah, it was the second time watching, as um it wasn't as nip and tuck as I had initially thought the first time, even though she was getting caught a lot more than she needed to, especially again in the middle rounds. But that seems to be a pattern for her in most of her fights at the moment. It's the first 3 rounds, brilliant. Rounds 4, 5, 6 is iffy, and then round 7, 8, 9, 10 come on strong. Now, in fights with people like Delphine Pursoon, or someone of that ilk, that's dangerous, because if you end up in competitive rounds at the start, and then you need to take these rounds off in the middle, then when it comes down to that back end, those rounds are going to be competitive again, and you could end up losing those on the cards due to inactivity or being outworked. So that's something that she maybe has to address and work on just a little bit. But overall, it was a good performance, and it was a performance fitting of an undisputed champ. So congratulations to her. She's a favorite of the great defeaters, and long may she reign. And let's see what she does moving forward. Whether it's going to be the Michaela Mayer rematch, or whether she gets to maybe fight Choi for the outright WBA, or whoever else it may be. If she moves up, we'll see. But yeah, good performance overall.
Cool. So, first and foremost, I gotta give props to Elhem Mekhalet, because I thought she came out, considering that she lost her last fight before coming into this. Many might have thought, well, how's that going to affect her? But in the end, I think it didn't. I think it kind of got her into the kind of mood to say, okay, I can improve on my last performance to the point that I could actually get a decision here if I work real hard. Because she was in great shape. She was in great shape. all 2 minutes of every round, she's working her hands. And this is something that, again, when I refer back to the technical stuff that I talk with my kids about, working hands consistently. People who work their hands consistently never find themselves in a situation where they're not throwing punches when they should do. Yeah, a lot of guys freeze, the hands don't come out, and it's like, well, you should just keep throwing your hands, let your hands come out. And she did that to great effect, because this kind of did, in a way, remind me of Delphine Pursoon against Katie Taylor, in that one girl is just going to keep throwing punches, and the other girl's looking to counter in between the salvos. Alicia, as you mentioned, she's a favorite here on the Undefeated. She has good technique. She uses a bit of a prodding jab. She tends to sort of like hold the left hand out and kind of look for you to kind of do something around it, and hopefully move your head off the center point, off the center line, getting away from the jab, and then moving into range of the right hand. So she does a lot of that. She also uses that hand to fend, or like to fence with the opposition's own jab, which Mekhalet kind of worked out after about 3 or 4 rounds. Obviously she gets the early knockdown using that technique, but then Mekhalet kind of goes, okay, hang on a second. If I don't continually just move into the range of the right hand, I can get my own shot off. Or when she comes in, I'm going to come over the top with it with my own right hand. So she's read the fight really well, Mekhalet. And she's got in her counters herself, but literally it is her work rate, which is very impressive for me. Baumgardner, picking great shots though. The power is the difference for me. Mekhalet throwing a lot of shots, but not impacting as much as when Baumgardner gets those shots in. When she hits, she's hitting with great aplomb, real power. You can see she's turning the hips really beautifully with the hooks. She rolls under, she comes with the under shots into the stomach. And she rolls, she makes great adjustments, to move from the body to the head very nicely. She's really honed her style. And to me, this performance improves on her performance against Michaela Mayer in the last fight. Because there were rounds where she's kind of, in a Mayer fight where you go, I think Mayer wins that round. But this one, she stamped her dominance more in this fight. So for me, this was a more impressive. I know they're different opponents, but to me, the performance here, if she takes this performance through to Michaela Mayer, I can only see her, causing even more trouble for Michaela Mayer, because she's now, totally dominant with her power shots. But, she does get caught. And as I said, I give props to Mekhalet for being in the fight for the entire distance.
Okay, so now we've arrived at the final co-main of the two, which is Amanda the Real Deal Serrano against Erica Cruz Hernandez. Talk about a war. So this fight, basically stylistically, Amanda Serrano had the advantage because Erica Cruz is a textbook pressure fighter. As I've said, pretty much she's the type of fighter that literally she can throw for days, not get tired. And if you don't have the ability to be able to just basically time her, then you're just going to lose on activity. Because the very first few rounds of this fight, I pretty much gave to Erica Cruz just on activity. Like she was just landing more shots than Serrano was. And it's almost like Serrano, even though she knew that she was going to come out in this style, she probably thought that she wouldn't employ it for her because she's got the punch power. But no, Erica Cruz will not be denied. She said, let's stand in the middle of this ring and bang out is what they did. Very nasty cut occurred in the third round, which obviously you can see the results of there. It was a clash of heads, which Serrano's team were worried that Erica might she might end up having the fight called off due to the cut, which would then was the result within a no contest. But Erica, true warrior that she is, said, "Nope, let's go, let's keep going." She just wiped the blood from her face, carried on punching, carried on slugging. But Amanda was being very smart, even though she was getting caught with a lot of shots up top, because she probably felt that Erica can't really. She doesn't have a huge amount of power, especially the way that she wings her shots in. She decided to stay in the pocket for the majority of the time, and she started working Erica's body. And you saw that start to pay dividends around about sort of round 5, because at that point, as soon as that sort of started happening, with the loss of blood and everything else, it all of a sudden you could see that Cruz was now, she was starting to wilt. She got caught with a couple of really clean straights during an exchange with Amanda in the 6th round, where her legs wobbled and she ended up going to the ropes. Amanda tried to pounce on her, but Cruz said, "Nope, we're not doing that. I'm not going anywhere. Like, you got to lay me out or we carry on." And ultimately they carried on, and it was just a slugfest. It was literally, would it be the volume of Cruz's shots, even though there was a lot of them was untidy and wasn't really clean striking, versus the good body work from Amanda Serrano and the cleaner shots, even though there was a lot less of them in the fight. Now, this was a fight, again, I don't agree with the scorecards of the judges in this fight. They had it, 2 of them had it 98-92, and one of them had it 97-93. Now, the 97-93 I'm okay with. The 98-92, I think that was real disrespectful to Erica Cruz, especially the performance she put on. I actually had the fight 96-95. I had it 5-4 on 1 even to Amanda Serrano. Now, obviously, if you take the 1 even and give it to Serrano, it's 96-94. The other way ends up being 95-95, a draw. But yeah, Amanda was always the likely to sort of get the nod, but she stamped her authority. But she got hit way too much for my liking, which also to me doesn't necessarily bode well for the fact that she's about to be out again in 13, 14 weeks. With the cut, obviously, that now has to heal up the little small cut she's got on the side of her eyebrow. That's got to heal. Don't know how long that will take to do before she's able to get in and start sparring again. New time zone, everything else. It's I mean, it's not ideal, but I suppose if you're a person that works off activity, then being more active is better than less active. So we'll see. Obviously, that all leads into Taylor Serrano 2 as an event. But in terms of this one, this was definitely a main event that was worth the price of subscription. But yeah, what did you think of it?
Yeah, so again, I have to give credit to the B fighter. Erica Cruz done a fantastic job. I mean, I just gave glowing praise to Ellen Mekhalet. I have to do the same to Erica Cruz because she made that fight to me. She was just non-stop, relentless, throwing punches at Amanda Serrano. And I don't think Serrano was able to work her out. We were able to listen into the corner, giving Amanda Serrano instructions. We weren't able to do the same for Erica Cruz as much because the focus of the telecast was mainly on Serrano. So they kind of knew who they thought was going to win. But at no point in time did I actually think, you know what, she's worked out how to effectively box against this girl. Every round, Erica Cruz gave Serrano hell. And as you said, the cards were those 2 cards especially were totally wrong. Considering there's no knockdowns, this is a very close fight. 1 round, 2 rounds in it at most, I would have said. Because many rounds to me, and I did put the scorecard in I did put the punch stats in. Sorry. I know it says Serrano's scoring more punches in many more rounds, but to me, I'm not really sure how some of those rounds ain't going to Erica Cruz, because she definitely throwing a hell of a lot more punches.
Yeah, I disagree with that. You can just see from the fight that Serrano didn't throw as many punches as the compy box is saying. Erica definitely threw more than her. It's not 968 to 949. Amanda didn't throw 950 punches.
That's what, 20 punches different? Nah, no sir. No way. So, I saw that, and to me, as I said, much like yourself, I thought this fight was much, much closer than the judges gave it. But it was so entertaining to see. I think I mentioned it in my Twitter feed that, this would be an interesting fight to see without that cut, because there was so much blood that you kind of felt like, is that going to affect Cruz's engine? She lost a lot of blood, and it was affecting her. Definitely was affecting. She was having arguments with her corner. They were trying to, stem the blood. She was cussing them out, telling them, look, just get away, leave me, get me out there, and it obviously must have affected her in a way. So it would be interesting to see how she would have got on had that punch, had that cut not appeared. This fight could have easily gone the other way.
Fair dues. Okay, right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the breakdowns for this weekend's action. Hope you did enjoy it. As you can see down below, all my details are down there. BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual. I was hoping to have a video out tomorrow, but because this phone is still setting up, chances are that may not happen. But to let you guys know, and this is an exclusive for all of you, although I won't tell you who. There will be a special guest on the show next week, and it will be revealed on Monday Night Smoke on Monday. But I will get a graphic all ready and put up for as soon as I announce that. And yeah, I definitely think it's one that you're gonna want to see. So tune in, and yeah, get in from early as well. It's 9 o'clock, so there's no excuses for being late. But yeah, you will be happy with who we're gonna have on the show next week. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. As you can see, Tony's stuff is down there as well. Pugilistic Boy on Instagram, remember, Pugilist Boy everywhere else. So with that being said, Tony, do you want to wrap it up?
Thank you very much, everyone who's in the chat. Thank you very much for your comments. Thanks for joining us once again on your Tuesday evening. We look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Peace.
Take care.